At the dawn of the 19th century, Europe was engulfed in a storm that would reshape the continent and the world. Napoleon Bonaparte, a military genius from France, rose to power with ambitions to conquer all of Europe. Yet, standing in his way was a small island nation with a powerful navy and unyielding determination: Britain. Between 1793 and 1815, the Napoleonic Wars raged, a series of conflicts that tested Britain's military, economy, and resolve. Through strategy, courage, and resilience, Britain not only survived but emerged as the dominant global power. Hello and warm greetings to you. Thank you for joining this captivating journey into one of historia's most dramatic and decisive periods. The Napoleonic Wars changed Europe and set the stage for Britain's 19th-century empire. It was a time of great danger and great opportunity. As we explore this story, I invite you to consider a question: was Britain's success in the Napoleonic Wars more due to its naval supremacy or its alliances on land? In 1789, a tempest began to brew in France that would shake the foundations of Europe. The French Revolution erupted, overturning centuries of monarchy and aristocratic privilege. It was a radical upheaval, driven by powerful ideas of liberty, equality, and fraternity that challenged the established order. The revolution's fervor quickly spread beyond the streets of Paris. It ignited hopes among the oppressed and fears among the rulers. Monarchies across Europe watched with growing alarm as the old world order seemed to crumble before their eyes. The principles championed by the revolutionaries threatened not only France's monarchy but the very fabric of aristocratic power everywhere. Britain, a nation steeped in tradition yet increasingly aware of change. The British government and society were wary of the revolutionary ideals sweeping across the Channel. They feared that the radicalism unfolding in France could inspire unrest within their own borders. But beyond ideology, there were deeper concerns. The revolutionary armies marched with ambition, unsettling neighbors, and redrawing maps with every campaign. Britain saw the danger not only in ideas but in the very real threat to the balance of power in Europe. As tensions escalated, Britain joined a coalition of European powers determined to contain the revolutionary tide. Britain was aware of the immense challenges ahead. Yet, the fear of revolutionary contagion and the desire to preserve its own influence and security outweighed caution. The early years of this conflict revealed a new kind of warfare, shaped by ideological fervor as much as military strategy. Battles were fought not only for territory but for the future of nations and the principles that would govern them. Britain's navy played a crucial role, controlling the seas and protecting trade routes. On land, British forces joined with allies to counter the expanding French armies. The war spread beyond Europe, touching colonies and seas across the globe. This period of conflict would last over 2 decades, engulfing much of Europe in turmoil. It was a time when the old world clashed with the new, and when Britain found itself at the center of a struggle that would shape modern history. For Britain, entry into this conflict marked a turning point, setting the stage for a century defined by war, diplomacy, and empire. This story is one of upheaval and determination, of fear and ambition, of the echoes of revolution reached across the Channel and changed the world forever. The rise of revolutionary France had unsettled the balance of power in Europe, and Britain was thrust into a conflict that would test its strength and resolve like never before. Across land and sea, the nation faced threats that demanded resilience, strategy, and determination. The nation was thrust into a conflict that would test its strength and resolve like never before. This story is one of upheaval and determination, of fear and ambition, of the echoes of revolution reached across the Channel and changed the world forever. On land, armies clashed across the continent. But it was at sea that Britain would carve out a crucial advantage. The Royal Navy, the guardian of Britain's maritime interests, moved swiftly to assert dominance over the French navy. Despite initial uncertainties and the complexities of war, Britannia's sailors and commanders demonstrated skill and courage, gradually tipping the scales in their favor. The Royal Navy, the guardian of Britannia's maritime interests, moved swiftly to assert dominance over the French Navy. Despite initial uncertainties and the complexities of war, Britannia's sailors and commanders demonstrated skill and courage, gradually tipping the scales in their favor. Britain would carve out a crucial advantage. A decisive strategy emerged in the form of a naval blockade, a comprehensive effort to cut off France from vital trade routes and supplies. This blockade was designed to strangle the French economy by preventing goods, weapons, and reinforcements from reaching its shores. Maintaining the blockade was no simple task. The vast stretches of ocean and the unpredictable nature of weather presented constant obstacles. British vessels had to patrol relentlessly, enduring storms and the ever-present threat of French counterattacks. Crews worked tirelessly, knowing that their mission carried the weight of the nation's hopes. The blockade's impact was profound. French ports found themselves isolated, trade ships were seized or turned back. And the flow of resources slowed dramatically. This pressure weakened the French war effort, straining their ability to sustain military campaigns and maintain internal stability. The economic toll was a silent weapon, as powerful as any fleet or army. Yet, the blockade was a double-edged sword. It required immense resources, coordination, and the commitment of thousands of men willing to face the dangers of the sea day after day. The Royal Navy's success relied not only on firepower but on endurance and unwavering discipline. During these early years, Britain's naval power was tested in battle and through the challenge of maintaining control over crucial sea lanes. Every ship that sailed, every lookout scanning the horizon, contributed to a complex web of strategy that would define the course of the conflict. The years from 1793 to 1797 revealed both the strengths and vulnerabilities of Britannia's maritime strategy. While the blockade proved effective in weakening France, it demanded constant vigilance and adaptability. The Navy's ability to respond to changing conditions and threats was key to sustaining this pressure. This period also highlighted the broader significance of naval power in shaping global affairs. Control of the seas was no longer just about military might. It was about economic influence, supply chains, and the ability to project power far from home. The legacy of these early struggles and the blockade would echo throughout history. The lessons learned in persistence, innovation, and coordination would inform naval tactics for generations to come. The Royal Navy's role during this critical moment cemented its reputation as a decisive force in European and world affairs. As the blockade wore on, Britain's resolve was tested by the vastness of the oceans and the complexities of war. Yet, the determination to maintain control and restrict French resources never faltered. It was a testament to the skill and spirit of those who served, often in difficult and dangerous conditions. This chapter of history is a vivid reminder of how naval strategy and endurance can shape the fate of nations. It illustrates the intersection of military power, economic warfare, and human resilience on the high seas. Through the storms and confrontations, Britannia's Royal Navy forged a path that would influence the outcome of the war and the future of maritime dominance. Their efforts in these years were more than battles fought, they were the foundation of a legacy that endures in naval history. In the unfolding story of conflict and survival, the naval blockade stands as a symbol of strategic vision and relentless pursuit of victory. This is the story of early challenges met with determination, of the relentless effort to maintain superiority, and of a navy that would become synonymous with Britain's strength and endurance on the world stage. Through these efforts, Britain secured not only its shores but also its place in history, demonstrating the power of the sea and the resolve of those who command it. In the closing years of the 18th century, Europe stood on the brink of profound transformation. Amid the turmoil and upheaval of revolutionary France, one man rose from obscurity to reshape the continent's destiny. In 1799, Napoleon Bonaparte seized power, declaring himself first consul and setting in motion a remarkable chapter of history. Napoleon's ascent was swift and decisive. With the revolutionary fervor still fresh, he promised order and strength. He reorganized the French army, instilling discipline and modern tactics that turned it into one of the most formidable military forces in Europe. His leadership was marked by a blend of vision and pragmatism, harnessing the energy of a nation eager to secure its place in a turbulent world. Beyond the battlefield, Napoleon implemented sweeping reforms that touched every corner of French society. He overhauled the legal system with the creation of a unified code of laws, promoting fairness and consistency. The economy was stabilized through financial reforms, and education was restructured to serve the state's ambitions. These changes solidified his control and earned him broad support at home. As first consul, Napoleon looked beyond France's borders. His ambitions extended across Europe, where the old order was weakening under the strain of revolution and war. He prepared for a campaign of conquest that would challenge the established monarchies and redraw the map of the continent. By 1804, Napoleon took a bold step that signaled a new phase of his rule. He crowned himself Emperor of the French, a gesture that declared his authority and independence from traditional powers. This act marked the birth of a new empire, one built on military might and centralized control. Napoleon's reign brought both hope and fear. To many, he was a visionary leader, bringing stability and reform after years of chaos. To others, he was a force of aggression, threatening the balance of power and the sovereignty of nations. Britain, in particular, emerged as one of his staunchest opponents. As an island nation with a powerful navy and global interests, Britain viewed Napoleon's ambitions with deep suspicion. The rivalry between these two powers would define much of the early 19th century. Napoleon's rise was not merely about conquest. It was a story of transformation. It was about a leader who reshaped an army, a government, and an entire continent through sheer determination and strategy. His impact resonated far beyond France, influencing the course of history for generations to come. This period captures the tension between revolution and empire, between old traditions and new orders. It is a story of ambition, reform, and the relentless pursuit of power. The rise of Napoleon stands as a testament to the complex forces that shaped modern Europe and the enduring legacy of one of history's most remarkable figures. The year was 1805, a time when the fate of nations hung in the balance on the restless waves of the Atlantic Ocean. At the heart of this struggle was a battle that would come to define British naval supremacy for generations to come. The Battle of Trafalgar, fought off the rugged coast of Spain, was a moment of daring, strategy, and sacrifice that echoed across history. The British fleet, commanded by Admiral Horatio Nelson, faced a formidable alliance. The combined navies of France and Spain, powerful and well-equipped, sought to challenge Britain's control of the seas. Their goal was clear: to break the British blockade and open the way for an invasion of the British Isles. The stakes could not have been higher. Nelson, known for his boldness and tactical genius, prepared his fleet with a keen understanding of the risks ahead. The British ships, though fewer in number, were manned by experienced sailors and officers ready to face the challenge. The air was thick with anticipation as the fleets drew near, the waves rolling beneath towering masts and billowing sails. When the battle began, Nelson employed tactics that defied convention. Instead of lining up in parallel fleets, he divided his ships into two columns, slicing through the enemy lines like blades. This bold maneuver caught the French and Spanish off guard, disrupting their formations and sowing confusion. Cannons roared and smoke filled the sky as the ships closed in. The roar of battle was relentless, but it was clear that Nelson's strategy was turning the tide. One by one, enemy ships were crippled, their masts shattered and decks overrun. The sea itself seemed to roar with the fury of the conflict, waves crashing against battered hulls as the outcome hung in the balance. Tragically, amid the victory, Nelson was struck down. His loss was a heavy blow to the fleet and the nation. Yet his leadership had already sealed the fate of the battle. The enemy fleet was shattered, with many ships sunk or captured. The Battle of Trafalgar was more than a military triumph. It was a statement of British naval dominance. This decisive victory ensured that Britain controlled the seas for the remainder of the war. The threat of a French invasion was extinguished, and the nation breathed a collective sigh of relief. Nelson's legacy lived on, inspiring future generations of sailors and commanders. The battle demonstrated the power of innovation, courage, and leadership in the face of overwhelming odds. It was a moment when skill and daring turned the tides of history. The aftermath of Trafalgar saw Britannia's navy solidify its role as the world's foremost maritime force. Its ships patrolled the oceans, protecting trade routes and maintaining peace through strength. The victory ensured that Britannia's influence would extend far beyond its shores. As the sun set over the battle-scarred waters, the story of Trafalgar was etched into the annals of history, a masterpiece of naval warfare and a turning point in the struggle for global power. This was a battle that changed the course of a nation. A testament to the spirit and resolve that shaped an empire built upon the waves. The Battle of Trafalgar remains a defining moment. Where strategy met sacrifice and Britannia's control of the seas was forever secured. In the early years of the 19th century, the struggle between Britain and Napoleon Bonaparte extended far beyond the battlefield. It moved into the realm of economics, where power could be exerted through trade and commerce. Napoleon, seeking to undermine Britannia's strength, crafted a bold strategy known as the Continental System. This was an ambitious economic blockade designed to isolate Britain from the markets of continental Europe, cutting off vital trade and weakening its economy. The Continental System forbade European nations under French influence from trading with Britain. Ports were to be closed, ships turned away, and goods from Britain banned across the continent. Napoleon aimed to choke off the flow of British goods, hoping that without access to European markets, Britannia's economic power would crumble, and its war effort would falter. Yet, putting such a blockade into effect was far from straightforward. Europe's vast coastlines, numerous ports, and intricate trade networks made enforcement a monumental task. Smugglers and merchants found ways to evade restrictions, slipping goods past patrols and restrictions. Hidden routes and secret deals kept the flow of British products alive despite the ban. The Continental System strained the economies of many European countries as well. Nations caught between loyalty to Napoleon and the practical need to trade with Britain faced difficult choices. Some complied only in name, while others covertly maintained trade relations, undermining the blockade's effectiveness. Meanwhile, Britain responded with resilience. Its navy remained dominant at sea, protecting trade routes and enforcing counterblockades. British merchants sought new markets and alternative suppliers, diversifying trade to reduce the impact of Napoleon's economic warfare. This period of economic conflict became a war of attrition, fought not with cannons but with tariffs, embargoes, and maritime patrols. Both sides felt the pressure. Prices fluctuated, shortages appeared, and industries adjusted to the shifting landscape. But despite the hardships, the blockade failed to deliver the decisive blow Napoleon had hoped for. Britannia's economy endured, buoyed by its industrial growth and global trade networks beyond Europe. The empire's far-reaching colonies provided resources and markets, sustaining economic strength through turbulent times. The Continental System's failure exposed the limits of economic warfare when confronted with determination, innovation, and vast maritime power. It revealed the complexity of controlling trade in an interconnected world and highlighted the resilience of Britannia's economy and navy. As the years passed, the economic blockade remained a significant front. In the wider conflict, but it was clear that Britain's spirit would not be broken by trade restrictions alone. The struggle between these two great powers continued, blending military campaigns with battles fought in ports, markets, and shipping lanes. This chapter in history illustrates how wars are waged not only on land and sea, but also through economic means. It reveals the strategic depth of the Napoleonic era, where control of resources and trade was as vital as control of territory. The continental system, ambitious but flawed, stands as a testament to the challenges of economic blockade in the age of empire and industrialization. It shaped the course of the Napoleonic Wars and left a lasting legacy on the relationship between warfare and commerce. In the end, Britannia's endurance through this economic onslaught reinforced its position as a dominant naval and commercial power, setting the stage for its continued influence throughout the 19th century and beyond. Between 1805 and 1813, Britain faced a daunting reality. The threat posed by Napoleon Bonaparte was vast and complex, stretching across the European continent. Britain, powerful at sea but limited in land forces, knew it could not stand alone against such a formidable adversary. The key to overcoming Napoleon lay in building strong partnerships, forging coalitions with other European powers united by a common goal. Britannia's diplomatic efforts reached far beyond its shores. It sought allies who shared concerns over Napoleon's growing influence and territorial ambitions. Austria, Prussia, and Russia emerged as crucial partners in this delicate balance of power. Each brought unique strengths of vast armies, strategic territories, and deep-rooted interests that complemented Britannia's naval supremacy and financial resources. The creation of these coalitions was no simple feat. Suspicion and rivalry among European states often complicated negotiations. Britannia's role as a financial backer and strategic advisor was vital in bridging differences and aligning interests. British soldiers also took part directly in combat alongside their allies. Their discipline, training, and experience added significant weight to coalition forces. Meanwhile, British generals and strategists offered guidance, helping to coordinate complex military operations across vast territories. This united front gradually shifted the tide of war. French forces, once seemingly unstoppable, found themselves facing relentless opposition on multiple fronts. The coalition's armies pushed Napoleon's forces back, reclaiming lost lands and disrupting his plans for European domination. Throughout these years, Britain's ability to build and sustain these alliances proved decisive. It demonstrated a keen understanding that victory required cooperation and shared sacrifice. The partnerships forged in this period were not merely military arrangements, they were a testament to the power of diplomacy and common purpose. The coalitions navigated a complex landscape of shifting loyalties, political ambitions, and battlefield realities. Their success was a product of coordination, trust, and the willingness to confront a common enemy despite differences. As battles raged across the continent, the impact of these alliances extended beyond the immediate military victories. They set a precedent for international cooperation in times of crisis and demonstrated how collective action could overcome even the most daunting threats. Britannia's leadership in this effort underscored its role as a key player in shaping Europe's future. The period from 1805 to 1813 thus stands as a pivotal chapter in European history. Britannia's commitment to coalition building was instrumental in the eventual defeat of Napoleon. The combined strength of these alliances laid the groundwork for a new order on the continent. This story is one of strategic vision and perseverance, of a nation recognizing its limitations and turning them into strengths through partnership. It reveals how alliances can be more than the sum of their parts, creating momentum that changes the course of history. Looking back, the formation and success of these coalitions highlight the complex interplay between diplomacy, military strategy, and shared interests. They remind us that great challenges often require unity and collaboration. Britain became the linchpin of a united resistance against a common foe. The legacy of this period endures in the lessons it offers about alliance, trust, and the strength found in unity. In this narrative, we see the unfolding of a grand strategy that combined resources, skills, and determination. The Coalition's victories were not just battles won but a testament to the power of partnership in shaping history. This is the story of how Britain, through its alliances with Austria, Prussia, and Russia, helped forge a united front that gradually pushed back the forces of Napoleon. The early years of the 19th century were marked by a fierce and prolonged struggle on the Iberian Peninsula. Between 1808 and 1814, Britain waged a significant land campaign in Spain and Portugal, challenging the might of Napoleon's forces in one of the most complex theaters of the Napoleonic Wars. This is the story of how Britain, through its alliances with Austria, Prussia, and Russia, helped forge a united front that gradually pushed back the forces of Napoleon. This conflict was unlike many others. It was a war of resistance, alliance, and endurance. The French army, one of the most powerful in Europe, had marched into the peninsula with the intention of securing control over Spain and Portugal. Their occupation disrupted traditional power structures and imposed harsh rule, but it also ignited fierce resistance from the local populations. Guerrilla warfare became a defining feature of the Peninsular War. Spanish and Portuguese fighters, often ordinary citizens and local militias, used the rugged terrain to their advantage. Small, mobile groups launched ambushes, sabotaged supply lines, and struck unexpectedly before melting back into the countryside. The French army found itself fighting a relentless and unseen enemy, stretched thin across hostile lands. The constant harassment made it difficult for Napoleon's forces to maintain supply routes or secure their hold on the territory. These tactics drained French resources and morale. Meanwhile, Wellington's British forces operated with precision and determination. He combined disciplined military strategy with careful collaboration with local allies. The British army adapted to the challenges of the peninsula's landscape, moving through mountains and rivers, engaging in battles that tested their resilience. The Peninsular War became a costly but vital front in weakening Napoleon's empire. Each victory, no matter how small, chipped away at French dominance. The sustained pressure forced Napoleon to divert troops and attention away from other fronts in Europe. This campaign was more than a series of battles. The landscape of the Iberian Peninsula, with its rugged hills, winding rivers, and fortified cities, became a backdrop for courage and sacrifice. The conflict tested the limits of military strategy and the will of those who fought to defend their homelands. The cooperation between Britain, Spain, and Portugal showcased a united front against a common adversary, demonstrated the impact that determined resistance could have against a seemingly unstoppable force. By 1814, the Peninsular War had significantly weakened French control in the region. The victory paved the way for the eventual liberation of Spain and Portugal, and marked a turning point in the wider struggle against Napoleon. The legacy of this campaign endures as a story of tenacity and collaboration. It highlights the complexities of warfare that extend beyond traditional battlefields, embracing the spirit of those who fought not only with weapons but with unwavering resolve. The Peninsular War stands as a crucial chapter in the Napoleonic Wars, reflecting the challenges and triumphs of a campaign that helped to shape the future of Europe. It is a tale of strategy, resistance, and the enduring fight for freedom against the tide of conquest. In the summer of 1812, one of Historia's most ambitious and perilous military campaigns began. Napoleon, the Emperor of France, set his sights on Russia, determined to force the vast empire into submission and solidify his dominance over Europe. What followed was a journey that would test the limits of human endurance and mark a turning point in the Napoleonic Wars. The Grande Armée Copyright a massive force of soldiers drawn from across Europe, crossed into Russian territory with confidence. Napoleon's reputation as a brilliant strategist preceded him, and his army moved swiftly, expecting a quick and decisive victory. But Russia was vast, its landscape both a challenge and a weapon. As the French advanced deeper into the heart of Russia, they encountered a scorched earth. Villages and crops were burned, resources destroyed, leaving nothing behind for the invaders to claim. This tactic denied the Grande Armée copyright the supplies it desperately needed, stretching their logistics to the breaking point. The Russian forces avoided large-scale battles, retreating further and further, drawing Napoleon's army into an exhausting chase across thousands of miles. The soldiers faced relentless hardship, long marches, scarce food, and the looming threat of ambush. Every step forward became a struggle against both enemy and environment. Then came the infamous Russian winter. Bitter cold swept across the plains, seeping into the bones of men and horses alike. The army, already weakened by hunger and fatigue, was ill-prepared for the freezing temperatures. Frostbite, illness, and despair took their toll. Supplies dwindled further as the harsh climate worsened the situation. Amid the cold and chaos, the French forces fought desperate battles to hold their ground. The brutal conditions were as formidable as any army. Many soldiers succumbed not to enemy fire, but to the unforgiving winter and lack of shelter. As the months wore on, the once mighty Grande Armée copyright was reduced to a fraction of its original strength. The retreat from Moscow was a harrowing ordeal, marked by relentless attacks and the constant threat of starvation. The journey home became a grim march through snow-covered wastelands, where survival was uncertain. Napoleon's Russian campaign ended in disaster. The colossal losses shattered the myth of his invincibility and exposed the vulnerabilities of even the greatest military power. The colossal losses shattered the myth of his invincibility and exposed the vulnerabilities of even the greatest military power. Exposed the vulnerabilities of even the greatest military power. Inspiring hope among his adversaries. The tide of the Napoleonic Wars began to turn. What had seemed an unstoppable force was now in retreat, its grip on Europe weakening. Its grip on Europe weakening. The Campania's legacy is a stark reminder of Naturia's power and the limits of ambition. It showed how strategy alone could not overcome the challenges of terrain, climate, and endurance. Napoleon's Russian invasion remains a dramatic chapter in history, where boldness met harsh reality. The story of 1812 is one of determination and loss, of grand plans undone by forces beyond human control. It is a testament to the resilience of those who endured and a warning of the costs of overreach. This pivotal moment changed the course of European history, shaping the eventual downfall of Napoleon and the reshaping of the continent. By 1813, the tide had turned against Napoleon Bonaparte. After years of relentless campaigning, the coalition for Caesar composed of Britain, Prussia, Austria, Russia, and other allies pressed their advantage with renewed determination. The climactic moment came at the Battle of Leipzig, also known as the Battle of Nations, fought in October of that year. This vast engagement was one of the largest battles in European history. Armies numbering in the hundreds of thousands clashed amid swirling smoke and thunderous cannon fire. Napoleon, once seen as nearly invincible, faced overwhelming opposition. The coalition forces surrounded and outnumbered him, and after days of intense fighting, the French army was decisively defeated. The loss at Leipzig shattered Napoleon's hold on Europe. His forces were forced into retreat, and his empire began to crumble as territories rose up against him. By 1814, the coalition had pushed into France itself, and Napoleon's position became untenable. Facing inevitable defeat, Napoleon was compelled to abdicate the throne. His reign as Emperor of the French came to an abrupt end. The victors, seeking to neutralize the threat he posed, exiled him to the small Mediterranean island of Elba. Here, under guard but with a degree of autonomy, Napoleon lived in relative isolation. Yet, even in exile, his ambition and charisma were undiminished. Less than a year later, in early 1815, Napoleon escaped from Elba, landing on the French mainland to reclaim power. His dramatic return sparked the period known as the 100 Days, a final chapter in his storied career. During these 100 days, Napoleon rallied supporters and marched toward Paris, regaining control without significant bloodshed. The European powers, alarmed by his return, quickly mobilized once more to confront the resurgent threat. The stage was set for a decisive confrontation. The Allied forces, led by the Duke of Wellington and supported by Prussian troops under General Blas 1/4 share, prepared to face Napoleon's veteran army. Napoleon sought to break the Allied lines with powerful attacks, but Wellington's forces held firm, using the terrain and disciplined formations to their advantage. The battle unfolded over a day marked by fierce combat and shifting fortunes. The battle would determine the fate of Europe. As the day wore on, the arrival of Prussian reinforcements turned the tide decisively against Napoleon. The combined pressure of the Allied armies overwhelmed the French, forcing a retreat, shattering Napoleon's last hope of reclaiming his empire. Waterloo was more than a military defeat, it was the end of an era. Napoleon's ambitions were finally extinguished, and the continent would enter a new phase of peace and diplomacy. The British played a crucial role in this victory. Wellington's leadership and the steadfastness of British troops were instrumental in securing the outcome. The battle became a symbol of resilience and unity against a common foe. After Waterloo, Napoleon was captured and sent into exile once again, this time to the remote island of St. Helena in the South Atlantic, where he would spend the remainder of his life. The defeat of Napoleon closed a tumultuous chapter marked by revolution, empire, and relentless warfare. It reshaped Europe's political landscape and set the stage for a century of relative peace under a new balance of power. This story is one of dramatic reversals, enduring courage, and the ultimate fall of one of historia's most iconic figures. It reveals how determination and alliance shaped the course of nations and how the final battle sealed the fate of an empire. In the echoes of the cannon fire at Leipzig and Waterloo, the future of Europe was forged. The legacy of these events continues to resonate, reminding us of the profound impact of leadership, strategy, and resolve. In moments that changed the world forever. In 1815, the world stood on the brink of transformation. The long shadow of Napoleon Bonaparte had finally lifted, and Britain emerged from the conflict not only victorious, but poised to shape the course of history. The defeat of France's formidable leader marked the beginning of a new era, one in which Britain's influence would extend across continents, its power felt in distant seas and bustling cities alike. The Congress of Vienna, convened in the aftermath of the Napoleonic Wars, became the stage for a sweeping reordering of Europe. Britain, as one of the foremost victors, played a critical role in this diplomatic gathering. The decisions made there would redraw borders, forge new alliances, and establish a balance of power aimed at preventing future widespread conflict. Britain's influence was evident in the careful negotiations that sought to contain France and restore stability. Its statesmen advocated for a Europe where no single power could dominate unchecked. The boundaries drawn at Vienna reflected not only military realities but Britain's strategic interests, safeguarding its position and those of its allies. Beyond the conference halls, Britain's naval supremacy remained a cornerstone of its strength. The Royal Navy, battle-hardened and unrivaled, continued to patrol the world's oceans, securing vital trade routes and protecting the far-flung reaches of the expanding empire. Ships bristling with cannon upheld British interests from the Caribbean to the Indian Ocean, ensuring the flow of goods, wealth, and influence. The seas were lifelines for an empire that stretched across the globe. British control of these waters allowed commerce to flourish, connecting colonies with the mainland and facilitating the exchange of resources and ideas. The Navia's presence was a deterrent to rivals and a guarantee of security for the Empire's vast territories. As the 19th century unfolded, Britannia's role as a dominant military and economic power was firmly established. Industrial innovation at home fueled growth, while overseas territories provided raw materials and markets for British goods. This synergy of industry and empire created unprecedented wealth and influence. The legacy of the Napoleonic Wars and the Congress of Vienna shaped not only the geopolitical landscape but also Britannia's national identity. The confidence gained from victory and leadership inspired a sense of purpose and destiny. Britain became synonymous with naval power, global reach, and political clout. Managing a sprawling empire required careful administration, diplomacy, and sometimes force. Britain faced the complexities of diverse cultures, distant conflicts, and emerging nationalist movements. Maintaining control demanded constant vigilance and adaptation. Despite these hurdles, Britannia's position remained largely unchallenged throughout much of the century. Its military might, economic strength, and diplomatic skill combined to create an era often referred to as Pax Britannica, a period of relative peace enforced by British power and influence. The impact of this period extended far beyond Europe and Britain itself. The imperial networks fostered cultural exchanges, technological advancements, and economic integration on an unprecedented scale. Cities grew, industries expanded, and new ideas crossed oceans, shaping the modern world. This era also set the stage for future global dynamics. Britain's leadership in international affairs influenced the development of global institutions, trade systems, and diplomatic practices. Its role as a mediator and power broker would continue to resonate in the decades to come. Reflecting on this period reveals a story of resilience and ambition. Britain's emergence as a dominant force was not merely a consequence of military victory but the result of strategic vision, innovation, and an ability to navigate complex political landscapes. The triumph over Napoleon was a pivotal moment. But it was the aftermath of the shaping of Europe. The securing of sea lanes, and the management of empiria that defined Britannia's 19th century. It was a time when the nation harnessed its strengths to build an enduring legacy. The echoes of this legacy are still felt today. Borders established, trade routes secured, and diplomatic principles formed during this time continue to influence international relations and global structures. This chapter in history stands as a testament to how power can be exercised not just through force but through strategy, cooperation, and foresight. Britannia's story after 1815 is one of maintaining dominance through adaptability and leadership on the world stage. In the vast sweep of history, the aftermath of Napoleon's defeat marks a moment when Britain seized the opportunity to define an age. It was an age where naval supremacy, diplomatic skill, and imperial ambition converged to shape a world that would never be the same. This is the story of Britannia's rise to unrivaled global power, its role in crafting a new Europe, and the enduring legacy of a nation that ruled the seas and influenced the fate of continents well into the future. This era of conflict tested nations and shaped the modern world. The story reminds us how determination, strategy, and alliances can change the course of history. Until next time, take care, stay curious, and keep discovering the incredible stories of our past.